Lamar Jackson just got hit with a warning nobody in Baltimore saw coming, right in the middle of the 2026 preseason. After 2 MVP seasons and 4 Pro Bowl selections, someone from inside the NFL world made it very clear that none of that is going to protect Lamar if things go wrong again. That's where things get serious. This warning didn't come out of nowhere. It comes right after a season that ended outside the playoffs, an entire coaching staff getting replaced, and a team trying to rebuild itself under pressure. But what's actually behind this harsh reality check goes way beyond what it looks like on the surface. So who exactly made it their business to spell that out for Lamar? Let's start with where last season left us, because that's really the root of everything being said about Lamar right now. Baltimore finished 8-9, which on its own is rough for a roster with this much talent. But it wasn't just a record. It was how the season ended, with a 26-24 loss to the Steelers that slammed the door shut on any postseason hopes. For a team that's supposed to be built around a Super Bowl window, missing the playoffs entirely stings in a way that numbers alone can't fully capture. What made it worse is that this wasn't some fluke, one-off collapse. This was a team that had every reason to believe it belonged in the mix, and it just couldn't finish the job when it mattered most. Losing to a divisional rival like Pittsburgh in a game that basically decided the whole season is the kind of result that lingers. Fans don't forget losses like that quickly, and clearly, neither did the people running this organization. That frustration is exactly what about to put a name on this warning. That's because the fallout was immediate and serious. John Harbaugh, the only head coach a lot of us have ever known with his franchise, was let go along with his coaching staff. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a minor shakeup. This was Baltimore deciding that the results of one disappointing year were enough to move on from a guy who's been the face of the sideline for nearly 2 decades. When an organization makes a call that big, it tells you everything about how much frustration had built up behind the scenes. And it puts a spotlight directly on the guy under center, because coaches get fired. But quarterbacks are the ones who stick around and have to answer for what comes next. That's the backdrop Lamar is walking into this season, and it's exactly why the warning he received hits as hard as it does. It came from ESPN's Louis Riddick, who put it bluntly: there's no grace period waiting for Lamar in Baltimore. Now here's where things start getting even more interesting, because Baltimore didn't just fire Harbaugh and leave a void. They brought in an entirely new coaching staff, led by new head coach Jesse Minter, with Declan Doyle running the offense and Anthony Weaver taking over the defense. That's a lot of fresh voices in the building all at once, and it changes the entire dynamic Lamar has to operate in. New coordinators mean new systems, new terminology, new expectations, and a completely different rhythm to learn on both sides of the ball. For a quarterback who spent his career building chemistry within a specific structure, that's not a small adjustment. It's essentially starting a new chapter of his career while still being judged by the standards of the old one. And look, there's real reason for optimism here, too. Lamar himself called Minter and the new staff a breath of fresh air back in May, and that's not nothing coming from him. When your franchise quarterback speaks positively about a coaching change this significant, it usually means there's genuine belief in the building that this new direction can work. Training camp reports have echoed that same energy, with a lot of positive buzz surrounding the new setup. But optimism in May and August doesn't guarantee results in December. New systems take time to gel, and Riddick's warning is really about exactly this kind of transition period. If the offense stumbles early while everyone adjusts to Doyle's scheme, or the defense is growing pains under Weaver, the patience for that adjustment period may not be there. And that brings us to something else Ravens fans need to consider when we talk about Lamar's health, because this is where the picture gets a little more complicated. Lamar missed 3 games last season with a hamstring injury and another game with a tailbone bruise. That's 4 missed starts right there, which is a significant chunk of a 16 or 17 game slate for a player as central to this offense as Lamar is. When your MVP quarterback is out, everything about how the team functions changes. Availability matters just as much as talent at this level, maybe more. A quarterback who's electric on the field but can't stay on it for a full season creates real problems for continuity, for game planning, for building any kind of rhythm as a team. And it's not just about missed games either. In the 13 games Lamar did play, there were 4 contests where he didn't record a single touchdown, whether through the air or on the ground. Think about what that means for a player of his caliber. 4 scoreless games from a 2-time MVP is the kind of stat that jumps off the page and demands explanation. It's not about doubting his talent, because nobody's questioning that. It's about consistency, about whether he can stay healthy enough and productive enough across a full season to actually get this team over the hump. That's precisely the kind of detail Riddick is pointing to when he says Lamar's game will be picked apart from every angle. So now we're looking at a quarterback dealing with injury questions, a new coaching staff still finding its footing, and a fan base that watched last season slip away in painful fashion. All of that combines to create exactly the pressure cooker Riddick was describing. And that pressure isn't going away just because camp reports sound promising right now. Riddick explained pretty plainly why his comments carry so much weight in the first place. It's always the quarterback who gets the most scrutiny, because that position naturally draws the most attention when things don't go well. Whether it's fair or not, that's just how it works at this level of football, and Baltimore is no exception to that rule. What's notable here is that Riddick isn't necessarily criticizing Lamar's ability. He's pointing out a structural reality about how NFL cities operate, especially one like Baltimore where football means everything. There's no room for excuses once the season starts. Fans and analysts alike will be watching every throw, every scramble, every decision Lamar makes, and connecting it directly back to whether this new era is actually working. That kind of scrutiny can go one of two ways for a competitor like Lamar. It can either become a distraction that adds unnecessary weight to every game, or it can become fuel, something that pushes and elevates his level even further. Given everything we've seen from him throughout his career, the mental toughness to handle pressure has rarely been in question. The bigger issue has always been whether the team around him can consistently support what he brings to the field. That's really the heart of this whole conversation. It's not just about Lamar individually. It's about whether Minter's system, Doyle's offensive scheme, and Weaver's defense can actually create the kind of team success that's been missing. Because if Baltimore starts winning, all this talk about pressure and scrutiny fades into background pretty fast. But if the losses pile up again, Lamar becomes the easiest target, fair or not, and that's exactly what Riddick is warning everyone to expect. Here's where the story shifts towards something a little more encouraging, because it's not all pressure and doubt surrounding Lamar right now. He's reportedly built a strong connection with rookie-wide receiver Jacoby Lane during camp, and that's exactly the kind of development that can change the trajectory of a season. New chemistry between a quarterback and a young playmaker often takes time, so seeing early signs of that connection forming is a genuinely positive sign for this offense. On top of that, Mark Andrews has reportedly been impressing throughout training camp as well. Having a proven, reliable target like Andrews performing well alongside a promising rookie in Lane gives Lamar multiple weapons to lean on as this new offensive system comes together. That combination of established talent and emerging potential is precisely what a team hopes to build around a quarterback entering a pivotal season. Beyond the connections on the field, Lamar has also stepped into a bigger leadership role this offseason. For a player who's always led primarily through performance, taking on more of a vocal, guiding presence in the locker room signals real growth and maturity. That kind of leadership becomes especially important during a transition year like this one, when so many new faces are trying to find their footing within the organization. But none of that erases the warning we started this conversation with. The moment the regular season kicks off, none of the training camp optimism will matter if results don't follow quickly. That's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath everything happening in Baltimore right now, and it's exactly why the season feels like such a defining moment for Lamar's legacy with this franchise. So where does all of this actually leave us as we look ahead to the season? Lamar Jackson is entering 2026 with real expectations, a completely new coaching staff, promising chemistry with players like Lane and Andrews, and a level of scrutiny that Riddick made abundantly clear won't ease up if the results don't show up quickly. The margin for error feels thinner than it's been in years. What this all really comes down to is whether Baltimore can translate the optimism we've seen throughout the offseason into actual wins once the games start counting. Minter, Doyle, and Weaver bring fresh ideas, but new systems need time, and time is exactly what a fan base hungry for playoff success might not be willing to give. If the Ravens struggle early, Lamar will be the first name mentioned in every conversation about what went wrong, regardless of how much of that is truly on him alone. We've seen Lamar rise to challenges before, and there's no reason to think he can't do it again. But this feels like a different kind of test, one measured not just by MVP caliber plays, but by whether he can lead this team back into the playoffs under an entirely new structure. So with all that pressure building heading into the season, what do you think Baltimore needs to see from Lamar to prove Riddick wrong? Let me know your take in the comments below.
And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out, and I'll see you in the next video.